Hello, welcome to the Serene Disciple Project at Eagle Isle Farm. The last video was a quick montage of the great Valentine's Day Arctic apocalypse. I'll put the link in the description below. Today, I thought it would be a good idea to sort of debrief that experience from a prepping point of view. But first, let me give you a little tour of where things stand around here.
Well, it started out with a winter storm like this, and that led to, well, here's your problem right there. Broken pipes. Lots of them. And that led to saggy sheetrock, and when you press saggy sheetrock with a broom handle, it falls on your head. Here you can see, looking from the upstairs bathroom into the downstairs bedroom. Here's what it looks like from below. And throughout the house, the floors have now been removed. And that leaves us in the enviable position of now living here. An RV supplied by the insurance company while repairs are made.
Turns out we were prepared for some things, but clearly not others. A few videos ago, I made the observation that reasonable prepping is merely being willing to ask a lot of what-if questions. So, did we ask the right questions? And how did our preparations stand up to the real thing? How did we actually fare during that long, dark, cold week? Well, over the course of the next several videos, we are going to find out. In today's video, and in videos to come, we will be talking about how we came to think about preparing for what may come, and what we did first. How we addressed short-term versus long-term preparation. What about guns? What about power? What about communications? What about healthcare? And finally, how did our preparations stand up to the real thing? Global pandemic followed by winter apocalypse. So we bought the farm, so to speak, in the fall of 2015 with almost zero agricultural experience. We bought it to have lots of rooms for chickens and grandkids, and not as a good place to weather disaster, but sometime in 2018, well before the tumultuous events of the following years, I had the sense that we needed to be more ready for disruptive change. We had no interest in trading the farm for an underground bunker in northern Idaho, though there have been moments I wondered if that would have been the right call after all. But we started by asking questions. Questions about where we live. Given where we live, what do we need to be prepared for? And so we made a list in order of the presumed likelihood. Here's our list. How likely are any of these events to actually happen? Well, the first one, severe weather, serious enough to cause major damage, temporary local power outages, local cell phone and internet outages, overall, pretty likely. That happens a couple of times a year around here, or at least has the potential. How about hurricanes? Serious enough to cause here, on the farm, loss of power, cell phone, internet, water problems, temporary localized food and supply shortages. Well, Hurricane Harvey was the last one around here just 4 years ago. So a reasonable threat. How about a wildfire, serious enough to make us need to leave in a hurry? Well, the last one was last year and came to within 100 yards of the house. So, reasonable threat. Now, beyond wildfire, what you really have there is a list of the fabled poo hitting the fan events of prepper lore. Like any of those could actually happen. Come on. Well, we thought that widespread technological failure, call it cyber apocalypse, which would mean loss of internet leading to power and communications grids failures and supply chain failures. We thought that that was more likely than, I don't know, say a global pandemic and all that would come with that. Missed it by that much. Turns out that even if something is less likely, it can still happen. Now, you may notice one notable, at least in hindsight, notable eventuality that didn't make our list. Did you spot it? That's right. Arctic apocalypse in tropical Texas? If I'd thought of it at all, and I didn't, I'd have put it just ahead of zombie apocalypse. Barely. Well, we'll come back to that. There are two broad categories represented here. Things that cause us to need to go, and possibly go in a hurry, and things that cause us to need to stay, but be more self-sufficient here on the farm. Well, we started by focusing on the first and put together go bags. I'll do a whole video on our go bags later, but what if we needed to hunker down here on the farm? What would we need? Well, we would need to eat and drink, water, but, you know, it never hurts to be prepared beverage-wise. We would need to provide alternatives for electricity, maybe communications and fuel, which would mean wood, propane, gasoline, diesel, as well as more mundane things like paper goods. Now, you notice that most of these preparations are the same for many possible scenarios. So if we needed to be prepared for the power going out, maybe that happened because of the result of a hurricane, more likely, or zombie apocalypse, hopefully less likely, it would be pretty much the same preparation. In fact, I agree with the CDC. If you are prepared for zombie apocalypse, you are pretty much prepared for anything. They actually said that. I'll put the link below. So we started preparing. Where did we start? Well, where every good thing in Texas starts, HEB. I'll meet you there next week. But for now, what does all this have to do with being a serene disciple? Well, in the book of Proverbs, part of the Bible's set of wisdom literature, it says, "A prudent person foresees danger and takes precautions. The simpleton goes blindly on and suffers the consequences." That's Proverbs 27:12, if you want to look it up yourself. The key word here is actually blindly, because what makes the prudent person prudent, avrum in Hebrew, is that he or she has their eyes open. Always watching, always aware of what's going on around them. This is the person in the bar fight scene in the movie that picks up their beer from the table just before someone else crashes into it. The arum or aware person saw it coming and was as ready as possible. The other guy never saw it coming. One is ahead of the curve, the other is behind the curve. One shows up at HEB before the toilet paper runs out, the other guy's looking at an empty shelf. One is part of the solution, the other is part of the problem. Now, don't misunderstand me. You can lose yourself to fear and paranoia, but that isn't really what I'm talking about. I can't prepare for everything, and what preparations I make certainly do not preclude the necessity of faith, and I don't put faith in my preparations. That said, last month when the roads iced over and the power went out, there was a satisfying sense of serenity in knowing that for Kay and I, it would be an inconvenience, but not a tragedy. Now, there was also something empowering in knowing that if my neighbors needed help, I would be ready to help. So, what about you? You've been through a few things in the last year yourself. You may have found yourself behind a few curves that you wished you'd been at least a little bit ahead of. What questions should you be asking? What's reasonable for where you live? Wow, something to think about. See you next time as we continue this conversation.